Welcome back to MEOLOGY, the study of me. This channel is where I break down how my mind works, how I learn, how I perceive, and how I move through life, because the more I study myself, the more clearly I can see my own design. And when I can see my design, I can work with it instead of against it. I just watched a video about why Harvard students seem to learn faster than everyone else, and the whole time I was listening, I kept thinking, I know this kind of learning. I know this rhythm. I know what happens when a person gets fully inside the material and lets it become part of their thinking. What grabbed me is that the video was really talking about active learning, real engagement, a system that pushes you to process what you're learning instead of just sitting there collecting information and hoping it sticks. That hit me because I already do some of this naturally. I've done it for years. I just have my own language for it. A teacher once told me I learn by osmosis. I never forgot that. At the time, it sounded quirky and kind of funny, but the older I get, the more I think she saw something real in me before I had words for it. A lot of my learning happens in layers. I absorb first. I sit with it. I talk it out. I write it out. I let it move around in my mind. Then I sleep on it. Or I take one of my NASA naps. Then I wake up and something that felt loose before has started locking into place. That's a real part of my process. So while this video is framed around Harvard, what I really heard was something deeper. I heard a description of how deep learning works when a person is involved enough to really take the material in. And for me, that connects directly to MEOLOGY and to my SAM method. MEOLOGY is the study of me. It's how I observe my patterns, my mind, my behavior, my perception, my timing, my strengths, my overload, my wiring, all of it. It's personal research. It's self-study with honesty. It's me paying attention to how I actually work. And inside that is my SAM method. SAM stands for Sensory, Assumption, and Mental Simulation. Sensory is what I pick up first. Tone, mood, body language, timing, behavior, patterns, atmosphere, details, energy, all the signals in the room or in the material. My mind takes in a lot. It scans, it notices, it tracks. Assumption is where meaning starts forming. What am I looking at? What does this seem to mean? What pattern is showing up here? What fits? What feels true? What feels off? My mind starts building a working interpretation. Mental simulation is where I run it. Where does this go? How does this play out? What happens next? How would this look in real life? Where have I seen this before? How do I use it? That's where the idea starts moving instead of just sitting there like dead information. That is how I process people, situations, systems, and learning. So when I heard this Harvard video talking about deep learning, I immediately heard SAM method all over it. The first thing the video talked about was writing to think. That landed immediately for me because writing has always been one of the fastest ways for me to find out what I actually know. You can listen to something and feel smart. You can read something and feel like you got it. You can nod along and tell yourself you understand. Then you sit down and try to explain it in your own words with no notes. And suddenly, the truth shows up. That is where the gap reveals itself. Writing makes you face whether the idea is really inside you or whether you were just near it. That's one reason journaling matters so much to me. It helps me sharpen the shape of a thought. It helps me take something that feels big and blurry in my head and turn it into something I can actually hold. When I write, I can see the strong parts, the weak parts, the vague parts, the parts that need more attention. So this Harvard idea of writing to think makes total sense to me, and I want to use it more deliberately. I want to take what I'm learning and write about it from scratch in my own voice. No notes, no crutches, just me and the thought. That tells me a lot, and it fits MEOLOGY perfectly, because MEOLOGY is about honest self-study. It's about really seeing what is there, not pretending, not performing understanding, actually checking. It also fits SAM method. I take in the idea through sensory. I start building meaning through assumption. Then I run it on paper. That paper becomes the runway where the thought either lifts off or stalls. The second thing that stood out was living inside the material. That one is huge for me because I've never learned well by treating information like some dead object I have to shove into my head. I need immersion. I need a field. I need atmosphere. I need to feel a subject around me long enough for it to start connecting to everything else. That's how my mind works. I've said before I have a Disney mind, a Delta mind, a valet mind, a pilot mind. What I mean is, I'm always scanning a system. I notice flow, timing, rolls, pressure, signals, what's happening on stage, what's happening backstage, who is moving with confidence, who is lost, where the bottleneck is, where the energy shifts. I don't just look at isolated pieces. My mind reads the whole environment. Learning works that way for me too. I don't just want to memorize facts. I want to live with the material long enough that it starts talking to the rest of my mind. I want it to connect to memory, behavior, real life, service, psychology, spirituality, systems, timing, all of it. So when the video talked about Harvard students living in an environment where ideas stay alive outside the classroom, that made sense to me. Learning gets stronger when it is part of your atmosphere, when it stays in motion, when you keep touching it, when you hear it, write it, talk about it, sit with it, and let it echo. That is a very MEOLOGY idea too. Build a learning environment that fits your wiring. Work with your real brain. Work with your actual patterns. Let the subject stay close enough that your mind can keep playing with it. That is also where my NASA naps come in. My NASA naps are a real part of how I learn, and mine are about 90 minutes. I know that's longer than what people usually mean when they say NASA nap, but this is my version, my rhythm, my architecture. Mine move in phases. The first phase is brainstorming. My mind is still close enough to the surface that the material I was just taking in starts mixing with my own ideas. Connections start showing up. Pieces start floating together. I'm not fully gone. I'm in that in-between place where the material is still warm and alive. The second phase is repetition. My brain starts going back over what I learned. It replays things. It reinforces things. It starts saying the lesson back to itself in its own language. There's a kind of internal review happening there. Then comes the REM-rich part. That's where it gets deeper, more symbolic, more vivid, more integrated. That's where my mind starts stitching things together in a way that can feel strange sometimes, but also very precise. A lot of times I come out of it about 3 minutes before the end, almost like my system already knows the flight plan. That is a huge part of how I learn. I can watch something, hear something, think about it, write about it, carry it around in my mind, take a NASA nap, and wake up with more of it integrated than before. My brain sorts, replays, connects, and hands the pattern back to me clearer. That's why the pause matters so much for me. The pause is not empty. The pause is processing. So when Harvard talks about forcing a pause before a test or before a big push, I understand the wisdom in that. Sometimes the mind needs space to organize the field. The third major idea in the video was exactly that, forcing a pause. I love that because so many people talk about learning like it's supposed to be non-stop pressure. More hours, more strain, more force, more input, more cramming. That has never felt like the deepest kind of learning to me. My mind needs room to connect dots. Some of the strongest understanding I have ever had came after stepping back for a minute, letting the pressure come down and allowing the lesson to settle. I have had so many moments where something seemed unclear while I was pushing it, then later, after rest or sleep or a NASA nap, it made sense in a cleaner way. That matters because it reminds me that learning is not only about effort in the obvious visible form. Sometimes the deeper organization happens in the quieter spaces. And that really fits the SAM method too. Sensory loads the system. Assumption starts building meaning. Mental simulation keeps running even when I'm not forcing it with my conscious mind. The lesson keeps moving through me. The fourth thing the video talked about was learning it twice. Hearing something once is one thing. Having to explain it out loud is another thing entirely. That part stood out to me because talking is a pressure test. It tells on you fast. You find out whether the idea is really inside you or whether you were just orbiting around it. The second you have to explain something in your own words, the weak spots show up. That is useful. That is how the learning gets stronger. I actually love this because I already do it. I talk ideas out loud. I explain things to myself. I explain them here. I test the shape of a thought through speech. And every time I do that, I learn more. Because speech forces structure. It forces retrieval. It forces you to hear your own logic. It forces you to notice where the thought tightens and where it starts wobbling. That is Sam method again. I took it in. I formed a meaning. Then I ran it live through speech and watched what held up. That is one reason I think conversation matters so much in learning. The right conversation makes your mind move. It forces the model to perform in real time. The fifth idea was getting your hands dirty. That matters to me because I've always respected applied intelligence. Can you use what you know? Can you take the concept off the page and put it into a real situation? Can you think under pressure? Can you read the room? Can you adjust? Can you solve something messy with incomplete information and real people involved? That kind of learning has always made sense to me because so much of my life experience comes from systems that are alive. Service work, customer experience, valet flow, aviation thinking, timing, reading pressure, handling moving parts. Those environments teach you quickly because reality pushes back. You either understand enough to work with what's happening or the situation exposes the gap. That's powerful. So when the video talked about using real cases and messy real-world situations, I understood the value immediately. That is how information becomes intelligence. That is how knowledge starts breathing. And for me, that is a big part of MEOLOGY too. I don't want ideas floating around like decorations. I want them connected to life. I want to know where they show up. I want to know how they change the way I think, how I communicate, how I create, how I understand people, how I tell stories, how I understand myself. That is where the lesson becomes mine. The last idea was opening your mouth. That one is simple and brutal because the minute you speak, you're exposed. The minute you say what you think, you find out whether the understanding is solid enough to stand. That's uncomfortable for a lot of people. Still, there is power in it. You retrieve the idea, you test it, you hear it, you adjust, you get corrected, you learn faster. That's one of the most useful things about active participation. It puts the lesson under pressure. That pressure gives you feedback, and feedback is where a lot of growth happens. For me, this connects again to the way I already learn. I need the material to move. I need it to circulate. I need to be able to hear it in my own language. I need to run it through my system. Once I do that, it stops being somebody else's lesson and starts becoming part of my own understanding. That's why this video hit me the way it did. It gave language to something I have already felt for a long time. Deep learning is active. It has movement. It has contact. It has rhythm. It asks more from you than passive attention. And I can already see how this fits into my own way of doing things. I write to see what I know. I immerse myself in the material so it stays alive in my field. I force pauses because my mind needs room to connect. I talk things out because speech pressure tests the idea. I apply things in real life because that is where learning becomes real. I open my mouth because retrieval sharpens the thought. And I use NASA naps as part of my process because my mind really does keep working on the lesson in sleep. That's why I say I learn by osmosis. For me, osmosis is not some vague mystical phrase. It describes a real pattern. I absorb, I carry, I replay, I integrate. I come back with a clearer pattern than I had before. And when I look at all of this through the lens of Sam method, it gets even clearer. Sensory is where I take the material in. Assumption is where I start building meaning around it. Mental simulation is where I run it, test it, forecast it, connect it, and apply it until it starts becoming real understanding. That is my framework for perception, and it is also my framework for learning. So what I like about this Harvard conversation is that it confirms something I've felt for a long time. Learning is deeper when you engage the whole system, when you involve your mind actively, when you let the lesson move through writing, speech, environment, application, reflection, and rest. That is where I want to go deeper myself. I'm not interested in just admiring what Harvard does from a distance. I want to pull out the principles and use them in a way that fits my life, my brain, my timing, and my design. That is the MEOLOGY part. Study yourself honestly enough to know how you learn best, then build around that. For me, that includes writing in my own voice, immersing myself in ideas until they start connecting, letting my NASA naps help me sort and integrate, using SAM method to understand how the idea is moving through me, and then turning that into something real. That's what I'm doing here. So that's my take on why Harvard students seem to learn faster and why this hits such a nerve with me. The bigger lesson is not just about Harvard. It's about what happens when a person stops treating learning like passive consumption and starts treating it like a live process. That is where things change. That is where ideas stop being random information and start becoming part of who you are. And that is exactly the kind of thing I want to keep exploring on this channel. If this spoke to you, tell me how you learn best. Tell me whether you write to think, whether you need to talk things out, whether your mind clicks after rest, whether you've ever felt like you learn by osmosis too, and if you're into self-study, psychology, perception, pattern recognition, learning, and understanding how your own mind actually works. Subscribe to MEOLOGY, because around here, I'm not just collecting ideas. I'm studying me. And through that, I'm learning how to learn. Use a friendly male natural-sounding soft voice. I need subtitles too.